participants. Dear participants, I have to give some instruction to you to conduct the session smoothly and with zero disturbance. I would like to request everyone to please follow the digital protocol. Please keep your mic on mute mode and please keep your camera on for interactive session. And you are requested to write your details like your name, designation, and school names in chat box only, please. And it would be highly appreciable if you use your chat box for writing comments, question and answer as well during the whole session. Actually, we would be enabling your mic as and when required by the resource person, and the feedback form will be shared with you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, and hope your support and active participation would make this session an enthralling and enriching one. It's my pleasure to inform you that our illustrious resource person, Dr. Priyanka Jan, has joined us. She is with us. Namaskar. Accordingly, welcome to all the enthusiastic and passionate participants. Myself, Anita Bajpayee, Principal Kamla Nehru Higher Secondary School, on behalf of Sahodaya Group of CBSE School, Bhopal, extend my warm greeting to acclaimed resource person, Dr. Priyanka Jan, Team Ratna Sagar, ardent teachers, esteemed mentor, and educator present in this webinar. I am really pleased and delighted to welcome all of you on this webinar, which is actually one from the series of webinar is being conducted under the aegis of Sahodaya Bhopal. This is really a remarkable and praiseworthy effort of Sahodaya to pursue excellence in the field of education. Well done, Sahodaya, great going. Year 2020 has been very unusual and unprecedented time in human history due to outbreak of COVID-19 and because of this pandemic. But on the contrary, in the field of education, 2020 has been a crucial and influential year also. New education policy, NEP 2020, unveiled after a huge gap of 34 years. NEP 2020 is a paradigm shift in education sector. It has many salient features, and one of its striking feature is competency-based education, that is CBE. CBE is a new term widely used in last academic session when it is being selected as theme of the session 2021 by the CBSE. We are acquainted with some of the fact about CBE, but this is an inadequate and deficient knowledge. Many more fold and dimensions are still unrevealed about CBE. Many queries are there still which are unanswered and unaddressed, like what are various competencies, how these can be identified in children, how do we hone and enhance competency in children, and we hope our virtuous resource person will answer and address all these doubts. Yes, so CBE is highlight of our today's webinar, and today's topic is competency-based education. To shed more light on the topic and get clear and wider picture of CBE, we have an eminent personality with us, Dr. Priyanka Jan. Before she begins the presentation, let me deliver a brief introduction of her profile. Priyanka ma'am is an accomplished professional with cross-functional experience of more than 13 years in training and content designing and development. She extremely worked with reputed educational as well as developmental organization. She has designed and facilitated wide range of capacity building program for diverse participants with a meticulous understanding of K-12 segment, child psychology and pedagogy. She bases her work on experiential and constructivist learning approaches. Ma'am has developed and executed numerous training programs for school leaders, teachers, and as well for children also. And she has led teams and steered several projects related to enhancing capacities, and out of which one of the online self-learning course was credited with the Best Innovation Award in Teaching Methodology by an international organization in year 2011. She initiated and implemented a pilot project called Project Beyond that primarily aimed to develop socio-economic capacities and life skills and promote entrepreneurship in youth in school of Himachal Pradesh. She has also authored several textbooks. She is currently working with one of the leading publisher of India, Ratna Sagar. Madam, we feel privileged and honored to have you here as resource person. Without further ado, may I request Madam Priyanka to commence the session. We are really looking forward and eagerly waiting for it. Ma'am, please take the honors of stage. It's all yours. Welcome, ma'am. Please unmute her.
हेलो ऐसा हेलो नहीं सर मैं म्यूट आप सब म्यूट हैं अनम्यूट है सर प्रियंका मैम भी कर दो आपको करो
Dear participants, sorry for the delay. Just within 2 minutes, Dr. Priyanka Jan will resume her presentation.
Yes, so a very good morning.
Welcome, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Very good morning and sorry for the delay. Sometimes technology doesn't work for our, with us, right? And thank you, Anita ma'am, for such a lovely introduction and your kind words. And it's my privilege and honor to be here and addressing so many experienced and wise, teachers, principals, and educators here. And truly, I look forward to this session, and I'm definitely going to learn more than you all, but I hope to add some knowledge or some bit of understanding about competency-based education. It's pretty new for us, but I hope to clarify certain doubts that you may all have. So a very good morning and a very warm welcome from Team Ratna Sagar as well. And yes, so without much delay, before I actually start, beginning about what is competency-based education, I just like to ask you all a question, right? So we all have a kitchen in our homes, right? I'm sure you would have had breakfast, and after the session, you would definitely look forward to the lunch. So if an individual, if any of us is cooking, okay, so let's say we are cooking something in the pressure cooker. Okay, anything of your choice, some vegetable, some pulse, anything that you would like. So imagine that you are cooking in the kitchen with the pressure cooker. So if you could all tell me on the chat as of now, what kind of knowledge, what all knowledge you will require, and two, what are the skills that you will require? Okay, so when you are cooking anything in the pressure cooker, okay, I'm specifying a pressure cooker because let's keep it, because you can also make a sandwich in the kitchen. I don't want to go there, but if you're cooking something in the pressure cooker, so just tell me, just think about the knowledge that you would require and the skills that you would require. So two things. Okay, I'm already getting answers. Cooking skills. Let's go beyond cooking skills. Let's go into deeper into different skills. We must know how to operate a pressure cooker, the water level, time management, ingredients, lid of cooker, one pot meal, handling pressure cooker. So these are the answers that I'm reading out on the chat. Knowledge of ingredients and quantity, proper measurement, time, no major skills needed, somebody says. Okay. Proportion, temperature and flame of gas. We do require an inclination and interest to cook in the kitchen. I do agree, but let's look at some of the skills, safety, innovation, scientific, how to put on the gas. So how to switch on the gas, okay. Knowledge about various vegetables, whistle. So I'm getting so many answers. I may not be able to read all. Safety skills, how much vessel is required, gasket and safety valve is correct or not, precautions, time sense, knowledge about how to beautifully display the dish. Yes, but that's the next part. And somebody says that we have to be hungry first of all. Okay, I'm altering my question. I'm modifying a question a little bit. You all educators here, so let us focus on the knowledge and skills that you would teach in a classroom. So related to the academics, related to the learning, and then tell me what kind of knowledge and what kind of skills we will require to cook in a pressure cooker, right? So I've narrowed down the question for you all, and let's look at the skills and let's look at the knowledge that you require while cooking, but something that is related to the academics as well. Fine and gross motor skills, wonderful. Use of vapor and time saving, measurements, critical thinking, measurement, okay. Problem solving, value based, patience, okay. Listening, speaking, reading, writing, okay, all the language skills. Precautions, logical, presence of mind, methodology, yes, but academic concepts, academic knowledge, and the skills that you normally teach in a classroom, let's relate it to that. Logical skill and according to food items, okay. critical thinking, problem solving, time management, creativity, comprehension, critical thinking, innovative, pressure, yes, time management, time saving, joy of learning, yes, definitely. Previous knowledge, knowledge according to the size of cooker, yes. The 3 R's, okay. Decision making, analytical skills, proper attention and focused mind. So a lot many answers, and most of them, yeah, I think all of them are right. Observation, amazing. Trial and error, temperature, pressure, right. So all these concepts, thank you so much for making it so interactive and answering it so quickly for me. So yes, definitely comparison between utensils and pressure cooker, water level. Yes, so do you see that, how so many concepts that we teach in our academics are in different subjects are related to just one act that you normally do every day, right? Cooking is something done on an everyday basis, on in fact multiple times, right? And this is a skill that everyone should have, irrespective of the gender, right? Even men cook, and they should know how to cook, right? Especially during the pandemic days, we've seen that everybody is cooking, and this is a life skill, right? I mean, to survive, we need to eat, and just in case there's nobody else for us to cook, we have to cook, right? So such a simple act done on a daily basis, and we could relate so many concepts and so many skills from the classroom, from the academics, right? Now, tell me something that do children, they learn about pressure, they learn about temperature, they learn about water, they learn even the sequencing skills, they learn about numbers, all the concepts of math, they learn everything. Will they be able to apply that learning in the kitchen, or are they able to relate what they have learned in the classroom with cooking in kitchen? Do you think children will be able to do that? Unless told. Unless told, do you think they will be able to relate the concept that they are reading in the classroom or learning in the classroom with, the concepts like these or acts like these in the real life? Many people are saying yes, by experiment. Some people are saying no, with trial and error. So I'm not asking you that whether children be able to cook. No, that's not the question. The question is whether they will be able to. So say, for example, today children learned about the concept of pressure, right? And if you did not give an example of a pressure cooker, do you think they will be able to relate it when they go back home and when they see their parents cooking or whoever is cooking in the kitchen? Will they be able to relate the concept of pressure with that pressure cooker in the classroom, unless told? It depends, of course. It depends on how you teach. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you gave the answer that it depends on how we teach, right? And this is what competency-based education is, that usually we are focusing more on the content. And now we need to focus more on the competency, right? So thank you so much for, giving such lovely answers. And let me just begin the session, and let me just, let's talk about what competency-based education is. Yes, I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So the very first, yes. So very first, before we actually go on into competency-based education, let's understand what a competency means. So competency can be defined as, any individual's capability of performing a task successfully. In simple words, our ability to perform a task successfully. And this task can be in a professional front, it could be in personal life, it could be in an educational context. So the context could be anything. The context is actually life. In life, our capability of performing any task is a competency. And this competency has actually, 3 aspects: knowledge, skills, and abilities. So if we have to, do a sum total of knowledge, skills, and ability, that's what, where we form our competencies. Right? So the first aspect of competency, which is knowledge, knowledge has to be conceptual and theoretical understanding, right? And it is a visible characteristic because either you know or you don't know, right? You can have some knowledge, yes, but either you would be able to really distinguish whether you have the knowledge or you don't have the knowledge. And definitely it can be developed through a good competency based education. So we all know that knowledge is the base of learning. If we don't know anything, we can't really go on or move forward with learning. Like you all said that knowledge of ingredients, knowledge of how to switch on the gas, knowledge of how to cook actually. So all of that is knowledge, right? And knowledge can definitely be developed through a good competency based education, which is a visible characteristic. Second comes the skills. Skill, of course, this is a widely used term, especially in education. And what a skill is, it is a measurable and observable proficiency, right? We all would agree here, all the educators will definitely agree with me that a skill is definitely we can measure the skills, and a skill is developed through training or experience. So again, going back to all your answers, when I asked you about cooking something with the pressure cooker, you all said that through experience, through training, through trial and error methods. So definitely a skill is developed through training and experience. So over a period of time, a skill is developed. And definitely it is a visible characteristic because you can actually see whether a person is skilled at something or not. And this also can be developed through competency-based education. And the third aspect of it is the ability. Now, there is a slight difference between a skill and an ability, though sometimes they are, interchangeably used, but an ability is actually a vast underlying capacity or a talent. So, when we talk about different talents or different capacities, so sometimes children display their hidden talents in terms of music or in terms of art, that they have a very good imagination and they are able to put that on paper in the form of a drawing or in the form of a sketch. So ability is the underlying capacity or a hidden capacity or talent. And it is, abilities are really essential to learn and apply knowledge and skills. So for the first two aspects, an ability is really required. If you don't have the ability to do something, then you may not be able to develop that knowledge. You may not be able to develop that particular skill even over a period of time. So abilities, and these abilities are mostly hidden characteristics, and abilities are not something that are taught. They are inherent in every individual, and it develops without formal instruction. So a very good example of ability is that these days children are so comfortable using the gadgets, right from a very young age. Even a 2-year-old or even a 3-year-old, when they pick up a gadget like a mobile phone or a tablet, it is very easy for them to navigate, and with just practice they actually figure out how to play their favorite video on YouTube, or how to play the cartoon or a music, a song that they like. So it is very easy for them to do it, right? So those are the abilities in children, which I'm sure that parents or teachers are not teaching children how to use a mobile phone, right? So no formal instruction has happened. In fact, no informal instruction has happened. It just comes naturally to children, because these days, of course, the newer generation is more pro technology, and that is how different abilities are seen in different types of children. And this definitely develops without any formal instructions because they are inherent. Right? Now, when we are talking about competency-based education, right? So certain principles or certain aspects of competency-based education, of course, we are going to talk about these in detail, but the few aspects, very important, essential aspects of competency-based education are that they demonstrate mastery, right? So when we are talking about building a competency, it is based on demonstration of the mastery of that particular competency. Then, of course, if we are talking about an education based on competencies, so these competencies need to be very well defined. Like we have all the learning outcomes, we have the learning objectives, we have the assessment parameters. So accordingly, in the competency-based education also, we need to have a very well-defined competencies and learning outcomes. And of course, we are going to talk more about it as we go on. Then assessment in education plays a very huge role. I think we all would agree that even though when we really teach through activity based pedagogy, and we use experiential learning approaches in the school or in the classroom, but sometimes our assessment is still really very narrow approach we take in assessment, and we usually do only written tests first of all. And even in that written test or examination or assessment, our questions are such that we are assessing knowledge, right? Of course, over the period of time, over the few years, we have switched and we have progressed to assessing skills as well. But still, our assessment is mostly focused upon testing the knowledge or the content part of the child, and not so much towards the skill. So while we are progressing towards skill-based assessment, we really need to focus upon the assessment part, because the assessment needs to be very meaningful, and it should also provide a positive learning experience. Because mostly uh, we've seen that children are not very comfortable, or they are very apprehensive about tests and exams. They don't want to take assessments and exams. They have a fear, or they are resistant towards assessments. So we need to give while we have created activities and teaching and learning processes in the classroom interesting for children, similarly even the assessments need to be made interesting and positive for children, so that they look forward to it rather than fearing and resisting assessments. Of course, we are going to talk more about it. And then differentiated support based on individual learning. Again, we have been using this term about differentiated learning or differentiated instruction. So it is very important, again, a very important part of competency based education, that we give differentiated support based on the individual learning needs, right? By differentiated, of course, we will talk more about it. Let me not detail it out here. What we mean by differentiated support, we'll talk about it as we go forward. And lastly, application of competencies, creation of knowledge, skills, and dispositions. So the sum total of competency-based education is really that we are applying our competency, because if we have developed something, we need to apply that competency. And yes, we definitely need to create knowledge. We need to have a good knowledge base, and all along with the knowledge, we also need to have the right skills, the right abilities, and a good disposition as well. Because disposition is more about your attitude. When we talk about knowledge and skills, those are mainly aptitude, but disposition is more about the attitude and the mindset of an individual, which is also a very important part of education. So let's see how we can develop this. Right. So competency-based education has 6 main components, right? And these 6 main components are that we have the learning outcomes, which are very well and clearly defined learning outcomes. Then we have the flexibility of time frame. This is a very important one. Multiple pedagogies, variety of engaging content, and then a very important one, criterion reference testing, again related to the assessment part. So criterion reference testing is very important part, which we will talk about in detail. And demonstrated learning outcomes. So let's look at each one, what it means really. So the first aspect is the clearly defined learning outcomes in terms of what knowledge and skills will be acquired by the students. So, usually, of course, we all have the learning outcomes defined in our system, and we have per subject, all the learning outcomes are defined. But usually these learning outcomes are more content based, so we need to also include the skills that are required to be developed in every subject, in every class, as a part of the learning outcome as well. Then comes the flexibility of time frame. Right now, we all know that children are each child is unique, every child is different, and these children have their own pace of learning. So while there are some children who pick up concepts very at a fast speed, they are able to learn first, before even their peers can catch up. But at the same time, there are some children who take more time in learning. They take a lot of time in learning, and they have their own pace of learning. So in competency based education, the time factor is really important. We all know that we have an academic calendar, we follow a session, and within that session we have assigned a proper time frame for completing the syllabus, or the content of each subject, right? And within that time frame, we really need to sort of finish the syllabus and test the children and complete the assessments as well. But in competency based education, we really allow children to be flexible as per the time and take their own time to develop that knowledge and develop that skill. Then multiple pedagogies, right? We all know this. We've been talking about this, and I'm quite sure that schools have moved. They have progressed quite a bit when it comes to pedagogy, when it comes to activity-based learning. Because earlier, the traditional blackboard chalk method and just chalk and talk method, we have moved away from that, definitely. And teachers are making so many efforts, and they are going beyond their limitations, and they are finding new ways to actually bring in experiences and bring in creative activities to the classroom. And that is what is required in competency based education, that we apply different, well, multiple pedagogies. By multiple pedagogies, again, including again, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, all these blends of different types of learning material and different types of activities that should be used regularly in the classroom, and that's how this will form the basis of learning. Then the variety of engaging content. Now we know that we follow textbooks and we follow a particular framework, or so-called syllabus, as far as content is concerned, in every subject, in every class. Now the same content can be very engaging. It really depends on how we are presenting the content. So while we have the guidelines from different boards, and we have to follow those guidelines, like for example, definitely in primary classes we have to in math we have to do numbers, we have to do addition, subtraction, all the operations. So the content, the knowledge remains the same, but how you present it, it can be in different forms. So maybe you can present numbers through a story, maybe you can present the numbers in a song or in a musical way, or you can connect it with games, or you could connect it with again, cooking, maybe in the kitchen, right? So how you are presenting the content and making it engaging, not only for children but even for the teachers, because teachers are the ones who are actually transacting or delivering the content. The teachers, we all talk about children feeling interested in learning. They should be really interested and curious about learning, but we tend to forget about the teacher as well. It has to be interesting for the teacher as well, because when the teacher would be interested, when the teacher will enjoy, the teacher is going to do a much fantastic job of delivering that content to the learners as well. So how to present the same content in interesting manners, that is also a very important part of competency-based education. Then comes criterion reference testing, which is really important, like I said. So this particular, again, if I can just ask, what do you mean by, or what do you think criterion reference testing would mean? Yeah, if you can give me some answers on the chat. Can I have some answers in the on the chat box? That what do you think criterion reference testing, according to you, what does it mean, or how is it maybe different from what we currently do? Okay, so assessment in an interesting way, measurable and observable, definitely. Objectives, concept based. Test the children based on their ability. Individual assessment, level of learning. We inform students beforehand on the criteria. Very good. Okay, activity-based, Kahoot. Okay, application-based, creativity. Criterions to be mentioned related to life, testing their ability. Express abstract concept, amazing. Involvement of every child. Condition of individual learning. Flexible assessment, more informative. Performance-based assessment for learning, analyze, self-assessment, real life. Wonderful. So these are amazing responses from lovely participants, right? And definitely multidimensional according to the capability of kids. Very nice. Cognitive teaching, mentality. Right. So thank you for sharing all these beautiful answers. Exactly. What the word criterion or criteria is, again, we have certain set standards or certain parameters that are well defined, and based on then parameters we have certain rubrics. So how we have in a traditional classroom, or currently in our assessments, we usually just have marks, right? So the test would be for maybe total would be 50 marks or 100 marks. And in that, if the child is scoring above 90, above 80, above 70, so there are brackets created, and then there is the gradation system, or grade system, that the child is getting A plus, A, B plus, B, C, and so on and so forth. Now, when criterion reference testing is a part of the assessment system, this actually means that we have set different parameters for assessing. And these parameters will definitely be based on what you're teaching and the knowledge and the skills that our students need to develop through every subject in every class. And yes, the children are aware of these criteria beforehand, right? How we know that, okay, these are the chapters that are going to come in a test. So the children already are aware of, okay, I need to, read up these chapters, and these are the kind of questions that come in a test, right? So similarly, children need to be aware of the criteria that they would be tested on. And these criteria and these parameters need to be linked to whatever knowledge and whatever skills we are expecting the child to develop in every subject, in every class, right? So that is the difference between criterion reference testing and, yes, the normal assessment that we are doing, right? So, and demonstrated learning outcomes, the last one. Right. And so demonstrated learning outcomes really means that the level of learning based on demonstrated learning outcomes. So again, the level of learning of a child should be determined based on whatever the child has demonstrated, as opposed to the marks that the child has got. Now, what is the impact of competency-based education? So clearly, there are different, and competency-based education. Why we are bringing it? Because it will definitely be more effective on the learning of the child. So very first one, the effect of competency-based education is that it clearly communicates expectations to students And that is why, students are more responsible, and they actually participate in the learning process. Right now, how are we communicating these expectations to students? Again, when we go back to the criterion reference testing, if we are listing very well defined learning outcomes, and we are sharing that with the children, and we are also sharing the different criteria that the children need to be tested on, right? So these two aspects, if they are communicated to children, then definitely the expectations from children will be clear. The children will know that, this is what I'm expected to develop, this is what I'm expected to know, and this is what I will be tested on. So I need to work on my knowledge and skills in a manner that I achieve that parameter, right? So children are actually, they own their learning process, and they participate more actively in the learning process. And all this impact that I'm talking about, this has been actually proven, because definitely competency based education has been used and implemented in different countries across the world. And different research studies have studied their models, and have done a research on the models of competency based education in different parts of the world. And through those research studies, we know for a fact that this is the kind of impact competency based education has on learning of the children, right? So this is actually research based, and scientific evidence has been collected for listing all these points. Then the second one is, it enhances the teacher learner interaction. Now we have all seen the shift, right? That from a lecture mode in the traditional classrooms, while probably when we were kids and we were learning, so it was quite passive for the students, because mostly the teacher used to speak and the students used to listen, and only speak when they were asked certain questions or when they had certain doubts. But since activity based teaching has come in, and a lot of experiences and a lot of multiple pedagogies are being used by teachers, the learners, the students, are more actively participating in the classrooms. They are more vocal, and they are having more interaction with the teachers, right? So similarly, we need to move beyond that. We need to progress further and enhance the teacher and learner interaction. And competency based education really allows that to happen. Then the third one is that competency based education, it uses creative and learner centric methods and techniques to enhance student learning. Again, we've already discussed this point. I've already shared this point. But again, in competency based education, this is the impact. So when we are using creative, and when we are taking care of all the learning needs of different children, so there are visual learners, then there are auditory learners, and then there are kinesthetic learners, right? And definitely we all know that all students, so I'm sure that you would be aware of the Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory. So different children have different types of intelligences, and a good way to actually teach children or to make them interested in learning is using that kind of multiple intelligence, or using the dominant intelligence part of the children in teaching learning process. So say, for example, if children are more musically inclined, then definitely if we include learning experiences related or based on music, or we use music to teach different concepts of math, science, social science maybe, or English, those children with multiple intelligences of music, they will definitely take interest, and they will definitely learn better. So this is what the impact will be, that when we are using the learner centric methods, we are being creative, so it will definitely enhance the student learning, because all types of children with different learning needs are able to enjoy the process and actually benefit from the learning process. Then the fourth one is that it offers flexibility to adopt a variety of strategies based on different types of learning styles of students. Again, the third and the fourth points are interrelated. So even the teachers have the flexibility of using a variety of strategies. Even the teachers are not, really limited or confined to a box, right? Their lesson plans can look lively. Your teaching classes or your classrooms can be more lively, more interactive, and teachers have the flexibility to adopt a lot of different strategies, again, to cater to all the different learning styles of the children. Then assessment. Again, assessment is very important in competency-based education. So assesses students on areas that they understand, prefer, and are interested in. Again, this is linked to the very first point of learning outcomes and criterion reference testing. So we are assessing not only on the completion of the syllabus or the important concepts to be covered in the syllabus, but we are actually assessing children on different skills, on different abilities, and of course, when we are including learner-centric methods, and when we are including all the learning styles of children, even the assessment is going to be a positive experience for children, and children are going to look forward to assessments and not just be fearful of it or be apprehensive about it. And the last one, and the very most important part, is focuses on quality of learning instead of volume. I think this is one of the pain points of teachers, that they have so much syllabus to cover, and oftentimes when even in my interaction with teachers and educators, they really want to do so much. They are so excited and enthusiastic about adopting different strategies and different pedagogies in the classroom. But one of the limitations is, ma'am, there is so much syllabus to complete. When to do these activities? Because definitely experiences and activities take more time than just a talk method. Through a talk method, maybe you can complete a chapter in maybe 2 or 3 days. But when we are doing certain activities, when we are adopting a lot of strategies in the classroom, definitely it takes time to build a conceptual understanding. And very rightly, the national education policy and the reforms that we are actually looking at by the government, definitely the syllabus is going to reduce, and we are seeing that we will be focusing more on the core concepts and cut away and do away with the things that were not really relevant in the school scenario, or again do a good job of the concepts that are essential and not really focus on a wide and a very lengthy syllabus, right? So I think this will be a sigh of relief for all the teachers and educators, that we will not focus on the volume or on the vast syllabus, but we will be focusing on the quality of learning, and teachers will definitely have more time to plan their activities and their experiences and strategies in the classroom. um, yes, so any questions as of now? I can just stop sharing the screen for a moment. If you have any questions, please, I may have missed a few on the chat if you wrote on the chat. If you can just ask me the questions again. We will definitely have a query round, a question and answer and doubt clearing round at the end of the session. But just in case till now, if we have any questions, maybe we can just, I don't think there are any questions. So let me just continue. Yes, assessment criteria, an example of CBE. Yes, we will talk about it towards the end of the session. Right. Now, very quickly. So very quickly, let me just, let's just look at the comparison between traditional and competency-based education. And again, I've touched upon these concepts, but for clarity, let's just focus upon different areas. So the very first one, learning outcomes, right? There are questions about learning outcomes as well, that how do we create learning outcomes in competency-based education? So when we are looking at a traditional or a normal classroom, then the learning outcomes are very narrow. They focus more on the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy, remembering and understanding, and the comprehension of content and memorization. So these are just the very first 2 or 3 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Definitely we have started including the hot spot in our learning outcomes, but that hot spot is a a very tiny part of our learning outcomes, but it needs to be more. So when you're talking about learning outcomes in competency-based education, they need to be very broad. They need to be holistic. Again, to have a deep understanding of the concepts and demonstration of skills. So let's not forget that in competency-based education, one of the most important differences in traditional and in competency is knowledge and skills together. Learning outcomes with knowledge and skills together. Then mindset is very, very important, because this actually drives. So when you're talking about disposition, when we're talking about the attitude, this really defines our teaching, or our teaching learning processes in the classroom. So in the traditional education mindset, we have a fixed mindset. If a child is getting, or if a child is taking time to learn, the child cannot do it. This is a fixed mindset. The growth oriented mindset would be, okay, the child is taking some time, let me provide certain experiences or certain activities that the child can do at his own pace, and let me see the progress. This will be the growth oriented, and the belief in every student that yes, every student can do better irrespective of the pace of learning or learning style. That will be the growth mindset, which is very important in competency based education, because we, it is really based on different learning styles and individual attention to all the students, rather than a fixed way of teaching in everyone in the classroom. Then definitely in traditional, we definitely again identify the achievers and the underachievers, right? This is a practical thing that we usually tend to do. But in competency based education, we are responsible for learning of all students. Like I said, that even if a student is taking some more time than the others, we still feel responsible of the learning of that student, and we ensure that differentiated activities are given as per the level of the child, and we ensure that the child progresses. Now this progress can be different for different children. It will be the child who is taking more time to learn will progress at their own pace, and teachers and educators need to be more patient with this particular process, and need to be responsible for all learning students. Because sometimes we often feel that we say certain things like, this kid really, this kid just is not really interested in teaching learning, and he can't really do anything in life, right? We tend to have these kind of notions and mindset, which we need to move away in competency based education. And the last one, and very important one again, the traditional system is based on grading, on ranks, on marks. But here, this is mastery of learning outcomes. So there is no comparison between different children, that, this child came first, second, third, but here we are saying that this particular child has mastered ABC learning outcomes. The second child has mastered C, D, and maybe A learning outcomes, right? So it is more of mastery of learning outcomes than based on marks and ranks. Then the culture. Even the culture of the school needs to change. If we are bringing in so many changes with respect to pedagogy, with respect to assessment, mindset, the culture should also change. In a traditional setup, it is more on compliance and order and discipline. In competency-based education, we are making children responsible for their own learning. So, which means that we are focusing on empowering and nurturing inclusive culture. We are, from a very young age, we are shifting the responsibility from the teacher to students for their own learning. And that really happens really well. I've actually seen it in some schools, and it's a beautiful process. And trust me, in that kind of a setup, teachers really feel empowered themselves, because they don't have to run after the students for learning. They don't have to run after the students for assignments or any processes. Children themselves are responsible, and they take ownership of their own learning and entire processes that the school follows. The support system, again, the support system, this was a point that was I shared in the beginning as well. In traditional setup, we give need-based support system. So for example, again, children who are taking time, we tend to give remedial classes or remediation to only those children. But and some children who are fantastic at learning, they are very when we say bright students, we also give support to those students to enhance their learning capabilities as well. So we tend to give them more opportunities than the other children. But in a competency based education system, there has to be a differentiated instruction and timely support to all students. Like I said, that each child is unique. We know that, right? It is nothing new that I'm sharing. But when every child is unique, the teachers really should understand and should know that, which child needs what kind of support. And also, this is related to the learning style and learning need of the child. So, differentiated instruction, like I said, children may be struggling with a concept, and maybe you have taught it in a manner that the child is not being able to understand. So maybe again you need to use maybe art based pedagogy, because the child is really interested in art, or the child is more visually inclined. So again, going back to the Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, teachers need to be very smart in recognizing the different intelligences in different students, and pick that intelligence and base the conceptual teaching or activity on that intelligence, and then see that how students pick up the concept so quickly. So this is what needs to be done in competency based education. It has to be differentiated, and timely support is very important. We usually tend to give support in a traditional manner, that when the students have already done assessment, and when the marks come, actually, then we get to know that, okay, the student is just at the passing level, or the student has not even crossed that pass percentage, then we give the support. But in competency based education, again, support is given throughout the year, and not only based on the assessments, throughout the throughout the teaching and learning processes. The teachers, of course, I'm sure the teachers keep observing these things, but the teachers need to be proactive in giving the support during the learning processes and not after the assessment. Then pedagogy, we've talked about this in detail, and I'm sure teachers already are aware of it, that in traditional education, we have a single curriculum or a syllabus, and we are really basing our pedagogy based on age, very age appropriate activities, very age appropriate methodologies we use. But in competency based education, again, we need to sort of modify our pedagogy based on the principles of learning sciences, which in simple words mean that we are basing our pedagogy on child psychology, on learning psychology. So there are so many different theories of learning, so we need to base on that. And for younger children, definitely we need to base our pedagogy on the developmental milestones as well, and a personalized learning pathway. Again, this is a very important part of competency based education, that for every child, there has to be a learning journey, which is very individualistic, which is a very personalized learning path. And that's how children become responsible. So, and they are able to clearly see their own strengths and their own gaps in learning. And this will definitely be linked to the learning outcomes and the criteria we are setting for the assessments. So all these three things are related. Assessment, I've been talking about assessment so much, and we all know how important assessment is. So in traditional setup, we all know it is more about off learning, it is summative in nature, and it just checks what the students know versus what the students know and the skills that the students have. And we have a very one size fits all approach, because we are usually doing the written or maybe oral kind of a testing in a very fixed format. But in competency based education, again, we have been talking about these terms earlier also, even when the CCE was introduced years back. Assessment as learning and assessment for learning and formative. So teachers are very well aware of these concepts, and competency based education and the NEP has brought in these aspects again. So assessment needs to be ongoing, and only then you can give the support as well. So all the different components of competency based education are interlinked and interrelated. So assessment needs to be for learning, it has to be formative, it needs to be ongoing and a continuous basis. It also needs to be diagnostic. By diagnostic, we actually mean that we are testing the level of learning at every point. And when we are, assessing the level of learning, we know that different children will be at different levels. Now, according to these levels, the support required can be given by teachers easily then. Then the teachers will not need to struggle with time because the level of learning will be clearly defined, and based on that level of learning, teachers can easily offer support to all children in different forms. And of course, assessment, needless to say, has to be linked or aligned to the learning outcomes. This definitely the teachers definitely know. And even in assessment, there needs to be a personalized path. So when I talk about a personalized learning journey, it includes the outcomes, it includes the parameters for assessment, it includes the pedagogy, it also includes the assessment and the kind of assessment as well. Like I said, the assessment need not necessarily be in a written or a fixed format of a test. It could also be a project which children are doing in a group or children are doing it individually, and that project can have different criterion or can have different parameters to be tested on, and that could serve as a proper assessment as well. So even that can be done, and I'm sure teachers are aware of such assessment tools. It's just that we need to include those tools more often in our teaching learning processes. Another very important point here is the proficiency standard. Now, the proficiency standard in a traditional setup is determined by the level of the students, which means, 80%. So if we have 33% or 40% as the pass percentage, and anything above that is acceptable, so we are setting a proficiency standard like that. And we are also, while we are giving grades according to the marks, according to the range of marks, we are also setting the proficiency according to a very fixed mindset. But in competency based education, again, it needs to be a very consistent and it has to be a reliable standard of the student proficiency, and all the students to hold the same high standards, right? So again, even the proficiency standard in competency based education needs to be aligned to the assessment parameters, the criterion reference testing, and the kind of assessment that we are using to assess a child. And the advancement, again, advancement means that we are promoting the child in different grades. So again, in a traditional setup, if the child achieves the pass percentage, then the child is promoted to the next class, as opposed to in a competency based education, the child should have demonstrated the mastery of learned skills and not just attained the pass percentage. Like I said, that mastery of learned skills will be determined through a rubric, right? And this rubrics has certain levels, and the skill will be there. The skills are actually broken down into sub skills or subsets, and each subset or sub skill is measurable, and a rubric is given for every subset or sub skill. And based on that rubric, we know, we will determine whether children have demonstrated the mastery of the skill or not, because there will be certain, again, progression in the rubric. So a summary of it, just for your reference again, so the things, you could use this summary as the pointers that you need to keep in mind when you are implementing the competency-based education in your school, in your classroom. So you need to take care of the outcomes, right? When you are defining the learning outcomes, make sure that they are related to the knowledge and the skills as well. Then the mindset, ensure that you are moving away from the fixed mindset and you're adopting the growth mindset. When you're doing competency-based education in your school, have a culture of empowerment rather than culture of discipline and compliance. The support system, again, provided by teachers and the leaders of the school, needs to be differentiated. So whenever you are implementing CBE in your school, you need to take care of these pointers. Pedagogy, of course, we all know we have already moved quite a bit in our pedagogy with respect to activities, experiences, and multiple kinds of pedagogy. But yes, also when you are designing a pedagogy for your competency-based curriculum in the school, we need to have a learning path for every student based on the level of student, based upon the pace of the student and the learning style of the student. In assessment also, different criteria needs to be listed for, or the parameters for the assessment, which need to be linked to the learning outcomes. And again, in assessment, we need to follow a personalized learning approach for developing that positive experiences for the children. Again, two more pointers when you need to that you need to think about, or you need to focus upon when you're implementing CBE in your classrooms, is a proficiency standard. It has to be a consistent meaning for everyone, right? And the advancement has to be learning based and not time based. It cannot be that one academic year gets completed and the child achieves only a pass percentage and they move on, but we are basing the advancement based on the learning of the child, again, which is aligned to your competencies or learning outcomes. Okay, so the last one, uh, just you've got an understanding of competency-based education. I hope so, right? So maybe for yourself and for the school, you can actually, think at what stage you are with respect to competency-based education. And this can be flexible. This is more of an opinion of your, yourself, as far as you yourself is concerned in the classroom and also in the school. So this is a kind of a readiness stages that you can think about. If you're trying to understand the competency-based education, you are at stage 1, which is perfectly fine because this is a new concept. It has just been introduced and more guidelines are coming up for CBE to implement in the classroom and in the school. Stage 2, if you are discussing to consider it, we are already discussing it in the class school, and you are having meetings and you are considering, and I'm sure that all the schools here definitely are past stage 2. That is where we are having this webinar on competency based education. Stage 3 is that you are planning to start the implementation of competency based education in your school. Stage 4 is that you're already providing competency based education in few grades and subjects. And the fifth one, of course, you are doing it all, right? So as far as my understanding would go and my judgment would go, I'm sure that the schools would be around stage 3, I'm guessing. And that is why we are having this webinar. And I'm sure you already have some understanding of competency based education, but you are still figuring out how to implement it and make changes, especially in the pandemic times when we are having online classes and not the regular classes in a physical setup. So yes, and yes, somebody says that we are on stage 5. Awesome, that is really great, and congratulations to you. That if you are doing competency based education and you've reached stage 5, that is absolutely awesome for you. Right, so can we have questions, please? Because I'm sure that there are questions quite a bit in the chat. Yes, I can see that many schools are on stage 5, and that's quite amazing to know. So please feel free to ask me questions, whatever, any thoughts, feedback. Neeta ma'am, maybe you can allow them to speak as well.
Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot, Priyanka ma'am. And it was really an enriching and actually rewarding experience.
Thank you, ma'am.
And the famous scientist Albert Einstein mentioned that I have no special talent, I am only passionately curious. So curiosity and inquisitiveness is really an excellent human trait. In this segment of our webinar, we appreciate and acknowledge the curiosity and doubt of our participants. And to conduct the question answer session, may I invite our worthy and valuable team member, Mrs. Bharti Sharma ma'am, Principal Sharda Vidya Mandir Sihor, and she is Secretary in Council of Sahodaya, Bhopal. Over to you, Bharti ma'am. Please proceed the question answer session.
Thank you, Anita ma'am, and thank you so much, Dr. Priyanka, for a very engaging and informative session.
Thank you.
It is said that as long as there is algebra, there will be prayers in schools. This slogan showcases the pressure children face when they are growing in a non-participative learning environment. And I'm sure after today's session, teachers will be introspecting and devising means to shift from a lecture mode to activity-based teaching. Going through the questions, Priyanka ma'am, I wanted to ask, while talking of 21st century skills, competency enjoys a very respectable place. And in tomorrow's world, we think competency and integrity need to go hand in hand. How to integrate these in teaching?
Right. Very valid question, ma'am, and thank you so much. Competency, again, I think the word competency is just broken down into different skills and knowledge, right? It just needs to be understood that when we are talking about the skills, knowledge, I think teachers are already aware of the knowledge aspects and the content aspects. But when we are talking about skills, so these skills are not only related to the academics. Rightly, ma'am, you said that, integrity and different competencies that we need to lead a good life, which are also related to your social and emotional abilities. We have seen during the pandemic times that how difficult it is becoming to cope up with the challenging times. The resilience that we require for, coping up. This is such an important skill, or I don't know whether I could call it a skill, but a competency that every human being needs. So why not include it in our curriculum? Why not include it in our teaching learning processes? And this is actually, competency-based education bringing in that we are not limiting the skills only to cognitive domain, but we are also including the, the other two domains of affective and the, psychomotor. So physical aspects also, and also, again, like I said, integrity, values, life skills, social and emotional learning aspects, all these competencies need to be included in our learning outcomes and in our parameters for assessment. So I think one of the questions that I also saw, during the session was that how do we list the assessment parameters? So when we are listing the assessment parameters, the knowledge needs to be broken down in very simple terms, right? And so the skills also. When we say critical thinking, now critical thinking is broad, it is vast, and it will become very difficult for teachers to, assess or make a rubric for critical thinking. So critical thinking has many aspects. You can break down into sub skills. Similarly, this is more of a cognitive, I would say, cognitive skill, more of course. But critical thinking can also be used in personal life scenarios. But along with skills like critical thinking, we need to include competencies like I said, resilience, like managing emotions, right? So the problems that teachers usually face with behavior of children, we often just keep correcting the behavior of children, but we are not really focused upon developing their capacities to manage their behavior. So that is a very big difference between the traditional setup and competency-based education, that we are including, we are accepting that behavioral competencies are also a part of school education, and also we need to develop them and we need to assess them. And this, of course, needs to be done. Of course, we can't teach, behavioral aspects.
Yes.
We need to demonstrate. And I think, of course, in all our subjects like languages, our environmental science, EVS, social science, all these subjects relate and can do a very good job of teaching or demonstrating values, life skills, and competencies like resilience, managing emotions. They can do a beautiful job. So we need to align them to the curriculum in a manner that we are including all these competencies as well. And I think then we can develop integrity and all those values that, ma'am, you're talking about.
Thank you, ma'am. And one more question coming up was, a competent person who can work in collaboration is bound to create magic. So can you suggest some ways to develop team spirit or the values which sports only can inculcate in this sports deprived online teaching scenario?
Definitely. I do understand that, the sports teachers, students, everybody is missing out on sports.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
again, see, the team spirit is when we work in teams, right? And definitely thanks to our technology, we do have platforms even like Zoom. We have options of breakout rooms. We have on different platforms, we have the option of creating groups on an online platform. I think we should definitely make use of it. I do understand that teachers feel a little worried that, whether children are going to do anything in the groups or not. But again, like I go back to saying that we need to develop the responsibility in children to own their learning process. If they are not doing it, for how long can you keep a check and like, that stick on their head? You can't do that for the entire life. So we need to develop this kind of an attitude in children that they are responsible for their learning. And please use this group feature. And when you do these, group activities, even in an online scenario, I'm sure that the team spirit will get developed. Slowly, of course. Initially, there may be children may not be very comfortable doing it, but again, learning is a process, and children pick up very quickly. So use these group features of the kind of activities that you do in the classroom. Of course, the physical material is not there, but maybe you can give a question to think about, a prompt to think about, or have a few discussion pointers. You can share the screen. You can have different pointers that the children need to think about. Form groups, give them some time, and give them maybe a structure to present. Because when you just leave them loose, definitely it becomes a problem. But if you give them a structure, the children are definitely going to have that spirit. Nahi, our group needs to get become come first. You can also have rewards like these, that you can announce that I will announce the most creative team, the most quick team. You can have different awards like these. So then definitely children will get involved in the team, and they will, when they will collaborate, when they will talk to each other, these team spirit and collaboration, communication will automatically get developed. That's what my suggestion is.
Thank you, ma'am. And what do you think can be the most important drawbacks of competency-based education?
The drawbacks.
Drawbacks.
Yes. So I feel that, the very first drawback or challenge, I would say, I would like to call them as challenges, that
Okay.
shifting from, our usual current setup to something new will definitely be a huge challenge, because not just teachers, but the students and the parents are also very used to the format that we are following. So moving away, especially when we are talking about individualized learning path, when we are talking about criterion reference testing, explaining it to the parents, explaining it to the students, and adopting it might face a challenge, but I feel that it will take some time. The implementation part will take some time. And yes, one of the challenges also, I feel, given the huge strength of the classes, we have a huge number of students in one class. It may get a little challenging for teachers to do an individualized learning process for every child. But I do feel that, if at the school level things are managed, and there is a proper structure to it, and teachers also work in teams, and they help each other and they support each other in this process, I think it's going to ease out. But initially, yes, I do feel that, the implementation of CBE is definitely going to bring in challenges with respect to moving away. and forming that individualized learning path for every child.
One question has come up from Praveen that can you please explain what you actually meant by individual learning pathway?
Right. So individual learning pathway literally means that, so when we are doing, when we are defining the learning outcomes, and when we are also defining the different criteria and different parameters for assessment, right? So as the child keeps displaying, so different children are going to display that skill or that criteria in different ways and at different times. So the teacher actually has to create a holistic progress card. Of course, the NEP is also talking about the holistic progress card. So this is linked to that also. So say for example, you definitely would have observed that some children need, if I talk about mathematics, some children need help with place value. Other children are clear about place value, but they are more, they struggle more with maybe multiplication or division, right? So individual learning path is that children who are struggling with the different competencies or different knowledge concepts and skills, you have a different learning journey for them, which means that based on their multiple intelligences as well, you will need to see their learning style, you will need to see their level of learning. So for every student, the teacher is aware of all these aspects, and based on these aspects, the teachers need to provide support to all the students in a timely manner. So this is actually a learning path. That is why I said that, this is going to be a challenge for the teachers, because we are not used to doing it, and the class strength is quite a big one. So yes, but I'm sure, I think teachers are very creative and innovative, and they can come up with ways to implement anything and everything. So I have that faith in teachers. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering all the questions in a very nice way. And if any participant wishes to ask any question, please raise your hand so that we can unmute you. Amit sir, can we unmute Neha ma'am, Neha Jadhav? Also, I have shared the feedback link in the chat box. Please fill feedback form. Requesting all of you to please fill the feedback form.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Neha Jadhav here.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I am really impressed by the way you have taken this workshop in a very practical approaching method. And here I would like to say on behalf of all the teachers that when we started this online teaching learning process, we were at par with the students learning from the grassroots level how to operate the teams and how to begin the learning process. So I would like to say that here we have done blended teaching learning process. Students I found were more smarter than what I was at the technical aspect of this operating system on the teams. So any suggestion which you can give teachers that how to be more efficient with this new online technology? We are doing, we are trying.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate that, teachers are accepting of this fact that the students are more tech savvy than us. Definitely, yes. I think, we just sort of have this, block in our head that we are not tech savvy. We are from a different generation. We are used to our normal, pen method and all of that. I think first we need to remove this limitation from our heads. I think we can all be tech savvy. And I think Google is a boon for all of us. I would really say that use Google extensively, because I myself, I'll share my personal journey that I am also not a very tech savvy person, but I've learned to use so many tools. And definitely, I don't know what tools teachers are using here, But I'd just like to share a few tools which will also answer Bharti ma'am's question of team spirit and, having more interactive sessions along with the group feature. There are a lot of options like Jamboard. Again, I'm not sure how many teachers are using it here. Maybe you're already using it, but we have interactive tools like Jamboard. So first, just remove this block from your head that as teachers we are not tech savvy, and take it up as a challenge that, okay, we are teachers, and why not include technology and be so comfortable with technology that you can use easily in your classrooms. And also, I think it is a good thing to drop our teacher's hat sometimes and just learn from our students. Why not give a project to students, smartly? Again, like I said, teachers are very smart. Why not give a project to students and, ask them to do something on online learning tools and submit a report to you? So, you get the report. You can use those learning tools in your classroom as well, right? So rather than doing your research yourself, at least you get the knowledge from the students and then you can practice it with each other. I think one of the good things is that, when we are actually, even in Ratna Sagar, when we use some technology new, we do a practice session with each other. So as teachers, maybe you can find, I know it is very difficult for teachers to find time, especially in this scenario, but maybe it's just half an hour, maybe 1 hour a week, whatever, or maybe just 10 minutes, and maybe you can use a new tool and you can have a knowledge sharing session among the teachers and a practice session as well. I think that will be a good practice for you to get comfortable with technology and also use different types of technology, because different teachers end up using different tools. You will be able to share with each other and you will be able to practice it before actually going to the classroom, the show, carrying on in your show. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I think with this, we come to an end of the question answer session. And thank you so much. And over to Anita, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Bharti ma'am, and thank you, Priyanka ma'am. Also, it was quite
so
interesting and provoking session. And now, at the end of this webinar, it's time to express our gratitude for the guests. For the same, I would like to call an diligent and assiduous member, Mrs. Poonam Raizada, Principal World Way International School, Bhopal, and she is Treasurer in Council of Sahodaya. Over to you, Poonam ma'am. Please come and deliver the vote of thanks.
Namaskar, one and all. At times, our own light goes out and is to be rekindled by a spark from any other source. And then gratitude automatically comes out as strong emotions of happiness. Thank you, Dr. Priyanka Jan, for ignited us as well as given the idea of implementing competency-based education. This is the need of the hour. On behalf of Sahodaya Group of CBSE Schools, Bhopal, and entire supporting team, I extend my hearty vote of thanks to Dr. Priyanka Jan for gracing and sharing with us her opinions and findings on competency-based learning. Thank you, ma'am. It was a beautiful takeaway.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Our gratitude for her. A deep sense of appreciation for all the edu leaders and educators for their participation in our series of webinars. Also, I thank Ratna Sagar for their unflinching support and advocating the modern pedagogies. My sincere gratitude to Dr. Ashok, Mrs. Anita Bajpai, and Mrs. Bharti Sharma in managing out and moderating today's session. That was really nice, ma'am. Thank you all. That's all.
I would also just like to thank, first of all, the Sahodaya group, for organizing such sessions. I am told that, you're organizing sessions on a regular basis on different aspects of learning. So that's a wonderful thing. and really a wonderful job that you're doing. And thank you for collaborating with Ratna Sagar and being an eminent part of Ratna Sagar team as well. And I feel personally, I feel really privileged to address such a wise and such a accomplished gathering of educators here. So thank you so much. And I just hope I could add a little value, or just make this 1.5 hours worth your time. And yes, thank you so much. Even I learned a lot from you all, and thank you for having this positive smiling faces and positive spirit on the chat. It was really engaging for me. Thank you so much.